Good morning. This is Dr. G at the Heart of Healthcare. I'm here with a season 3 bonus episode with my friend Stefanie Elkins, our founder of Death Over Drafts and Be Present Care and an aging life care professional. Good morning.
Morning. Thanks for having me.
Of course. I'm so excited. We're finally creating this. Audience, I met Stefanie, 2023 when I went to my first End Well, and the co-author of The Real Deal About Hospice, she knew about Death Over Drafts. And so we went to that rainy event the night before, and turned out that I ended up co-crafting with her. And so I'm happy we can bring this to the public.
Yes, very exciting from that first meeting at the Death Over Drafts and knowing that we are going to continue this relationship and do stuff together.
Yes, and I'm really sentimental, so that's why I wore the dress that I wore last year, and I have on my buttons, see?
Yes.
All right, so let's tell the audience a little bit about yourself before we jump into what we want to cover today. So this is a fellow LA girl like me. You're from LA. You told me you're from went to Chatsworth High School, right?
Yeah.
What else about your background you want the audience to know?
So I am a Valley girl, San Fernando Valley girl, and been here for a while. And most of my working career has been here, even though I have been on the East Coast for a little bit in Boston and Philly. But I've always worked in like elder care and end of life field. I started, I'll tell you a little bit of my work background before we kind of head in, if that's okay.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
So started my career in supporting everybody through working for the Lisa Gibbons Memory Foundation, working with family caregivers, and created a place for family caregivers to gather who care for individuals with Alzheimer's and dementia. And so I really loved that in my own backyard and community, being a resource and support for families through education, empowerment, and energy, and then switched over to end of life a little bit later. So we can talk about that as well.
Oh, okay. Well, you can go ahead and tell us now. How did you switch over into end of life care?
Yeah. So from that experience of working with family caregivers and everything that needs to go, all the resources and tools and everything that goes along with that, one of the areas that I recognized that was challenging was the end of life conversations. And when we would have these hospice programs, that's when nobody was there. Mm-hmm. And I really recognized that the conversations around anticipatory grief and grief and end of life and what that looks like, what is the trajectory of the dying process, especially with Alzheimer's, can be a long process, and being able to hold space and place for those conversations and what it looks like. And I started working with hospice and palliative care doctors and professionals. And so I really felt like that was the area that I wanted to focus on, along with the sweet spot around advanced care planning, right? The kind of earlier on having the conversations around what people's choices and what they want and don't want for themselves, so other people can honor that through the process. And then from there, ended up working for Compassion and Choices and working on the medical campaign to pass the California End of Life Option Act, and working on end of life options in education and legislation around that in terms of empowering people for access. And now I'm doing both of those things. So independently with Be Present Care.
Oh, I love it.
Family caregiver. So I'm a family caregiver consultant, care managing, kind of helping people through that process. And then the end of life of that transition all around. So the elder care to end of life is kind of fluid for me within that.
I love that. That's my jam. That's my jam. Like, it's like we're so kindred, but in different spaces. I'm learning about you even in this podcast. I thought I knew everything you did.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think the idea is having us in conversation, the clinical and the non-medical, and who is there to be part of the team together, right? So that's what's so awesome.
Oh, fantastic. Well, you dropped the mention of, the death over draft stuff. So let's just jump in to teach everybody about what it is. So like I mentioned, we met at that 2023 Death Over Drafts. And so the story today is going to be, what is the origin story of Death Over Drafts? I'll share my experience because that was my first Death Over Drafts in 2023. And I know that you have your signature things, shout out to Lisa Paul. I actually don't have the death deck. I have the end of life deck. That's my favorite. And then we have the dementia.
Round it out.
And then we have the dementia deck that debuted at the ALCA Western Region Conference. I got to be at that. So yeah, we have these cards, we have conversations. It's at I don't even know how to call it, a beer place. What do they call those? A brewery. I need more coffee. Let me get another sip. Okay, so yes. It's at a brewery, and then it's just kind of, us talking. So let me just let you have the floor and just tell us the origin story of Death Over Drafts.
Yeah. So say thank you. As you kind of heard, that I sit in the elder care and end of life space, and it's fluid. And what are other programs already out there to kind of encourage conversations around all of it, to holding spaces? And I think maybe some of your audience knows there's these death cafes, which is a really great model. If you don't know it, it's international. And it's where people come and want to have cake, and they meet at a library or a back room somewhere, and they have cake and cookies, and they talk about mortality and mortality. And it could be anyone. It's not quite a support group, but it's about conversations on end of life, or whatever comes up. And I love that. But there's no agenda, and it's really not for those, it's not to be a resource person. And I'm a resource person. I'm like this, right? Dr. G, you and I are like this, give us more. And even though I lead different group facilitate different caregivers and grief groups, I want to do something where I can do this and hand out, wearing all my different hats. And that wasn't the model. So then what's another alternative? And there's other models like death over dinner and dinner parties, which are also good. What I wanted to do is combine my passions of craft beer and holding space on end of life conversations. So literally drafting a new narrative on end of life, right? And so I did that first at Reimagine, through Reimagine Festivals, which is another amazing platform to discuss end of life programs through creativity and reimagining end of life. And basically the basic format is usually a 2-hour format, usually at a brewery, very casual, informal, where people gather, I make a name tag with prompt questions. We can get into that in a little bit. Then we have a certain tool we can play, which is one of the decks that you have, or a theme of choice. But it's a real great tool for a short period of time. And then we take a group picture together. Now, one of the reasons why I love this model is that it's really inclusive for everybody involved, like for everybody. When I'm like a resource person and want to share, is that it could be for those that are curious. It could be for those that work in the elder care or end of life space to come and participate. So it's welcoming for others. And for, like, if you're a hospice nurse, that you can bring your partner or your best friend to join you at a brewery for a drink and play the death deck, which you can't normally do that at other places. And it's not a full presentation. So the idea of the low-hanging fruit to get somebody to come in and experience it is a little lower and a little more casual. And then I launched this. So I'm not the only one in Los Angeles or other places in the country with great breweries. There are a lot of towns that have great breweries. And so I launched it nationally. So there are crafters, AKA hosts, around the country and Canada. So it's really exciting that these brewing conversations and drafting a new narrative on end of life are not just happening in LA. They're happening all over Connecticut. They're happening in Chattanooga, Tennessee. They're happening in Ottawa, Canada. They're happening in Northern California. They're happening in Georgia. So that is kind of experience of having somebody like me or you hosting it and welcoming whoever wants to be part of this conversation.
That's fantastic. And then we're mentioning the ones that were in person, but I've participated in an online death overdraft, with you hosting. So you started this in did you say 2019, or that's when you?
Yes.
Yeah, 2019.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
so that's how we started. It was 2019 in Northern California, and then guess what? COVID happened, right? And we all had to readapt, right? And so I did with a couple of my colleagues, we did 13 weeks straight online of a death over draft community. And then we have quarterly death over draft Zooms where you are a special guest on one of those as well, where we kind of talk and interview, kind of like this style of theming different ways so if people don't live in these areas, that you can come online with your beverage of choice. Doesn't have to be beer or coffee. It could be beer or coffee or usually water. You bring a drink, you join us on Zoom, and then we have a conversation with an expert and kind of lead the conversation around that by asking prompt questions and hearing about people's experiences.
I love it. And I really appreciate how, you have this wide background, cultural community as aging life care professional, and, just your passion for caregiving and being a end of life doula, like all that is married in this, and you can be a bridge builder to help people, have a better life. Because to me, this is not just about death. It's for people to learn how they want to live until their last breath. And so that's awesome. So tell us how you integrate, your ALCA experience. And audience, we've done a podcast talking about care management and things of that nature. Tell us how you pull all that together, or is that just one of the tools you have so you can meet people where they are when they
Yeah.
come to you?
Well, death over drafts is a tool, right? It's a tool to begin conversation. It's not the end all, right? It's an opportunity to start it and meet others that maybe are more specialized in the work. So it's meant to be a tool before a workshop on advanced care planning or hospice volunteering or something else. The way I do it is that I know, especially like you are too with your medical professional colleagues, is upstreaming the conversation, right?
Yes.
Elder care, like I think of elder care and end of life is fluid. So I really like being part of Aging Life Care Association, care management. My specialty, let's say some people's specialty is dementia or developmental disabilities or mental health. Mine is kind of end of life. And that's kind of how we also are in that space together, is providing a safe space, even for people that are working with like elderly, that are comfortable with death. I've had colleagues say, "Oh, I don't want to come to the death over drafts because I don't like to focus on death." And I'm
Okay.
like, "Oh, you work with seniors. Like, we can't be death denial even working in this." And so it's giving people the opportunity to speak about it and naming it, and having people talk about their good and bad death experiences. So what I like to do is have adjacent events, right? So let's say we went to a conference together, the Aging Life Care or the NWell conferences, and we did an adjacent event. So it allows people that are part of that community have a different experience with a focus on them learning for themselves. Right?
Right.
We're always so busy, right? You and I both, because we like to facilitate on holds, right? People actually come there, and these questions, the death over draft question, the death debt questions, or if we have myths and realities of hospice, we're looking at this, we're asking questions from our own perspective and not like as the educator. So we're really answering the questions ourselves, giving people the opportunity to do that. We actually did one of our, as you probably all know, April 16th is National Healthcare Decisions Day. So we had a couple planning parties or death over drafts focused on the directives, and I provided tools for people to do this, is that people actually filled out their directives there. We had
Awesome.
a nurse there, we had a doctor, we had a notary there as well, but people actually filled it out themselves. We had doulas that were filling it out themselves. The hospice nurses coming to the event and filling it out with no shame, because sometimes we think if we're working this space, like we should have this all figured out and done. Many of us, it's still hard for us as well. So
Yeah.
opportunity for us to do it ourselves and to be together in a different way, and people do leave once you start answering these questions, having this space, feel lighter afterwards.
That's fantastic. And I love what you said. You mentioned some people don't want to go because they don't want to focus on death because of the work they do. And I love that you have different types of events with the death overdrafts where, like when we did it at Alka, it was focused on the dementia deck, just talking about those conversations. And, it's not so deathy because some people can think that's kind of weird to just focus on that instead of, again, how you want to live to the end. For me, I make it more about healthcare at the end of life or during the late stages of life so that people are not crashing into hospice, when it's time, and we want people to have, a good patient and family experience
And
for their
having,
life.
yeah, and I think, well, death over drafts, right? It's a fun logo. People love the sticker, posting the stickers. It's, once again, naming it. We don't always name death, dying, grief, hospice, and putting and being able to name it in a way so it's not so heavy. Doing it at a
Mhm.
brewery and talking to the bartender who's serving us and going, "What's this about?" And having conversation about, like, what do you do here? And I go, have you had somebody close to you that's died? And I spoke to somebody and they're like, yeah, my aunt just died. I go, what's her name? And they share their name. I go, tell me something about your aunt. And, oh, she was a really creative individual. She was always the most welcoming for all of us. She really kind of was a glue. And I miss her. And I go, that's what this is about.
Yes. Yes. And I love how we forgot to mention the icebreaker. The name tag always has an important question on there. Tell the audience how you always
Yes.
integrate that.
I always do a prompt. I'm a name tag person, and I'm a prompt question. So, because a lot of times people walking into this space, right? Even for you, for this, like, what am I walking into? So, the idea of a crafter, aka host, is somebody that's like a natural welcomer. Like when I ask people if you want to do this, like, how are you a welcomer? Some people are more introverts. That's understandable, but like here you are, you need to make people feel welcome and invite them in. Name tag, and then you ask a question like, what is the first movie that made you cry? In that question I asked I did a death overdraft in Little Rock, Arkansas.
Uh-huh.
Well, half the people there said Old Yeller.
Oh, really?
And
Oh
so
my
like
gosh.
we have a picture of Old Yeller, and or we ask people like, what is a value of someone that you love that died that lives on in
Mm.
you?
Oh, wow. Now that's more deep. That might be uncomfortable
Or
for some, but the
depending on,
movie.
yeah.
So what do you put on there? What's your movie?
Terms of endearment.
Okay. And then mine, can everyone guess? The color purple. My favorite color. And that movie, I was like
Oh, it's
9
all
years
heart.
old
It's all, oh
crying
my
in there. It was
goodness.
like crazy.
There was
So
so
much
much
trauma.
love and so much trauma, so much grief. Yes. Yes. Oh my
It was
goodness.
it was trauma,
Messy.
it was love, it was redemption, it was just a lot. And my
It was
9-year-old.
Oprah and Whoopi.
Yeah, yeah. And you know what? I don't no one okay, don't attack me. I don't think I've ever watched Terms of Endearment through. I'm gonna make myself do that during the holidays and I'm gonna
Well,
text you.
it's funny because we're talking about at Enwell or somewhere else, like the narrative of that experience of, because basically the main experience, can I give it away to you? That it's kind of well, what you're working on is not having this experience of somebody being in the hospital and managing pain and nobody's there to support them and give them the right information. And that
Right.
struggle of a family caregiver for their loved one is like, who's here for me? It's so funny because that's basically like what you want to do is change that narrative.
No,
I
I love it. It's classic. It's classic. So
Yeah,
thank you. I'm gonna
yeah.
watch it. It's like I had never watched Thelma and Louise, and even though I've seen the Carl go off the cliff, I was still shocked in the movie because I was like, "What?" So you're not giving it away. Don't worry.
Okay. All right. And once again, the idea behind the death over drafts, which is, both the vision is to have individuals like us that really want to change the narrative, that want to really educate and provide tools for people to just make the conversation to name the conversation, to have it in a public space. So it's casual, it's informal. So it's about the crafter hosting it, like a brewery that's willing to host it too. And then who's in the room, who's in the conversation, which could be 5 to 25 to 80 people. It doesn't matter because it's close knit. And then others around going, what is this? Who is this? And having that. And so it works on different layers, and you can bring resources and tools. And it's really the one conversation at a time that makes the
Yeah.
difference. That, as you know, that filters out to others' experiences.
Yes, yes. Well, I appreciate that. So how can people get involved? Again, I've been involved in the online death overdrafts and the pre-end well experience, which is a time for folks, who are flying in. They may not be going to the VIP party, but they have a place to kind of meet up, meet some vendors, buy some books, just hang out and unwind. But how can people become involved with death
Yeah.
overdrafts?
So the pre-end well is really for those that are, in the space already, that are doing amazing work in so many different ways, which is so exciting to really get to meet others that are doing the work locally and throughout the country and world. But the idea is some of those individuals might want to bring something back to their own community as an individual or a collective. There are a lot of
Right.
collectives and so on. So the idea is that if you're interested in hosting one of these, or aka crafting your own community, you can go to my website. I have monthly Let's Get Brewing info sessions.
Mm,
And
okay.
so you can talk to me, and I have a slide deck, and go through what the expectations and roles are to be a crafter, what you get from that besides the buttons and the coasters, and the branding materials, and then be able to see what fits in your role of working in the serving, not because not everybody still works, but like serving in the end of life community, because we've had hospice staff, we've had death doulas, funeral home individuals, like people to host it. So I want it to be a fit as a tool for you in your own community, if that's as an individual or a collective, or if you want to co-craft, or if you're working for a hospice company, what it works for you to do at one time, quarterly, or every month. So it needs to work for you, and I can work with you on that to make that happen.
Yeah. And then again, since we have, the signature product, the decks, again, there's different kind of folks that can be there. Like my favorite is obviously the end of life death deck, because this is the hospicey one, and healthcare, and kind of more, you know,
Well,
less
that's kind of
deathy.
Yeah, so the idea is who's your audience or not. If it's more general or specialized, when we worked with Alka, when we did the pre-Alka one, it is with care managers that we wanted to see how they can utilize this for themselves and with the communities they work with. My next death overdrafts I'm doing with Melinda Ramos and Mourning Pug and Pet Loss
Oh, yes.
Club, and our theme of that one is pet loss and grief, and pet loss and love, actually.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
that is the focus of that one. So there's different themes, but of course, having the deck as a tool for structured conversation that could be in smaller groups, because it's not meant to be an overall presentation, allows for that. And that's what we want to do, but do it in an environment where it can be a multiple different people with various backgrounds. But also if you partner with a hospice and you want to invite hospice nurses and volunteers, you can do that. If you want to do it for, an elder care networking group, or if you want to do it more general, broad community.
Awesome. Awesome. And thank you for covering the pet love and loss,
Yeah.
because it's not covered enough. That's why I did a podcast on it with a veterinarian, and he's a pet
Yeah.
doula. And so thank you for that. Being a pet mom has made me think, what did I get myself into? Because I know
Yes.
it's coming, right? So that's going to be fantastic. I might have to crash that other one with you
Yeah.
all. So, yeah, well, thank you for being here. I'll let you wrap up with the last words. I'll have a link to your website and the show notes, and kind of a summary of the topics we covered. But thank you for being here. I'll let you have the last words.
It's what's great about the death over drafts, one of the things is being able to hold space, but also be able to co-craft it with others that I want to share, because I love being a networker connector. So the idea of being able to hold space with others, it's a great event, to kind of fun social event to do it, and be a resource for those in the community, to show up for those that attend, and also those are in the room that you can hand out stickers to. They're like, oh, I'll put that on my water bottle. So I think it's a very accessible way to start educating in a, with a cheers.
Amen. Cheers to our coffee, right? Espresso.
Cheers to your coffee. Definitely a beverage
All
of
right.
choice.
All right. Well, thank you. We're going to be signing out on another episode of Dr. G at the Heart of Healthcare, bonus episode from season 3. And thank you for being here. Peace.
Be well.